Ethan Sterling had built his empire on one simple truth: data never lies. It doesn't bend to emotions, doesn't falter under passion, doesn't get lost in desire. And now, the data was screaming betrayal, encrypted in credit card swipes, hidden in security logs, flickering across surveillance footage. Once, he'd given Isabella everything: luxury, protection, his name. Now, she was giving herself to someone else. Someone dangerous, reckless, a man she should fear. She called it passion. Ethan called it a mistake. And mistakes have a price. There would be no breakdowns, no desperate pleas, no late-night calls. This would be precise, calculated, surgical revenge. Every step was already in motion, every asset frozen, every escape route sealed. She wanted excitement? She wanted thrill? Fine. Let's see how exciting it is to play against a grandmaster when you're just a pawn. The Sterling Tower loomed against the relentless Manhattan downpour, its sleek, reflective surface defiant against the encroaching twilight. From his corner office on the top floor, Ethan Sterling watched the data stream unfold across his monitors. Every flicker of information, every timestamp, seemed to weave a tale, a growing web of deception. He had crafted this empire from sheer ambition and meticulous execution, transforming raw potential into an unstoppable tech titan. The very skills that allowed him to expose flaws in code now illuminated the fractures in his personal life, fractures hidden beneath the surface, but glaringly obvious to anyone who knew where to look. Rain streaked the windows, a rhythmic distraction as Ethan's fingers moved over the keyboard, analyzing security logs with practiced efficiency. Something had been off for weeks, and now the numbers were finally telling their story. Unusual late-night activity on the home security system, changes to alarm codes, minor adjustments, unnoticed by most but never by him. Never. His phone buzzed. Another message from Isabella. "Working late again. Don't wait up." Ethan opened his surveillance dashboard, his expression hardening as he checked the GPS tracker he'd planted in her car. She was parked outside the Grand Astor Hotel downtown. For the third time this week. His assistant had already retrieved the hotel's security footage. Routine. There in the lobby was Isabella, dressed to the nines in a designer gown, hair perfectly styled, the glint of her wedding ring catching the light. Trailing behind her was a man Ethan didn't recognize. Tall, muscular, moving with an unsettling grace that set Ethan's instincts on high alert. "Sir," his assistant's voice crackled over the intercom, "Mrs. Sterling's personal shopper is on the line, requesting approval for some additional charges." "Approve them," Ethan replied evenly, betraying no emotion. "And pull the credit card statements for the last 3 months. All accounts." "Understood, sir. And Sophia is here." Just as Ethan was closing the surveillance feed, Sophia entered the room, her lively presence a stark contrast to the sterile corporate atmosphere. "You missed dinner," she said, settling into the chair across from him. "Work again?" Ethan muttered, gesturing to the array of screens. "Always work." Sophia leaned forward, concern softening her expression. "Ethan, is everything all right with you and Isabella?" "Why wouldn't it be? Because you're here at 9 p.m. reviewing security footage instead of being home with your wife." Ethan didn't flinch. "Some things need attention." "Come on, Ethan," Sophia pressed, her voice gentle yet firm. "Talk to me. What's really going on?" "Nothing that can't be handled soon," he replied tersely, his fingers returning to the keyboard. "Thanks for checking in." "No, don't do that." Her voice sharpened. "Don't shut me out. I know that look." "What look?" "The one that says you're planning something cold." Ethan's gaze finally met hers. "Sometimes cold is necessary." "No, it's not. Not with marriage. If there's an issue with Isabella, you need to talk to her. Work it out." "Some things can't be worked out." His tone left no room for further discussion. Some things can only be endured and repaid. Sophia stood, her expression tight with concern. Promise me you won't do anything drastic. Ethan's smile didn't reach his eyes. Define drastic. Without waiting for a response, she left, still uneasy but unwilling to push him further. Ethan turned back to his screens, his focus unbroken. The evidence was mounting, pixel by pixel, every timestamp revealing more betrayal, laid bare in the smallest details. Credit card transactions, hotel reservations, surveillance footage. Ethan selected Anya Vroman from his contacts. It was time to prepare for war. With clinical detachment, Ethan continued to monitor Isabella's descent into a web of lies. The footage from the Grand Astor painted a damning portrait. Marco, the man she was meeting, exuded a dark, almost predatory charm, every movement designed to capture attention. When Isabella arrived, he was already there, his hand possessively gripping her arm as if staking his claim, his eyes tracking her every movement. Ethan's investigator had dug into Marco's past, uncovering a disturbing pattern, a history of violence. A girlfriend thrown into a wall outside a bar, another with a broken wrist after an accident, and a restraining order filed by a third who had fled the state. The pattern was unmistakable, calculated in its precision, yet Isabella seemed oblivious. Ethan watched, unable to tear his eyes away as she fell further under his control. Marco's gaze was like a drug to her, his domineering touch thrilling her. Even when he forcibly grabbed her face in the hotel corridor, kissing her with a ferocity that made Ethan's blood run cold. She didn't flinch when he punched the wall near her head during an argument. She called it passion. "She's addicted to the danger," Anya remarked, her tone flat as she studied the footage in Ethan's office. "No," Ethan replied, his voice colder than the steel in his building's frame. "She's addicted to the fantasy. The danger is just the cost. She hasn't realized she'll have to pay." The following week provided further confirmation of the situation's progression. Isabella carefully hid a bruise on her arm beneath an expensive sleeve. A public outburst revealed Marco's face twisted in uncontrollable fury, a fury he had barely begun to show. He had shoved her, only a slight push in his eyes, but a clear sign of something darker looming. Ethan observed each occurrence with cold detachment, systematically recording every detail. Every act of aggression, each minor increase in tension, followed a predictable, deliberate course. It was only a matter of time before the violence intensified. One of his security team suggested they warn Isabella, but Ethan quickly dismissed the notion. "She made her choice," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. "Now she will face the consequences alone." In his private office, Ethan meticulously reviewed the data. 57 encounters in hotel rooms, each one marking a disturbing tightening of control around Isabella. The security footage showed her gradual decline, designer clothes growing increasingly disheveled, makeup now smeared by the tears she tried to hide. Her confident stride had turned hesitant, fragile. The changes were unfolding exactly as Ethan had predicted. It was time to start stripping away the financial security that could provide her an escape. Ethan observed with clinical precision, collecting evidence, carefully constructing his case. Every day, Isabella's mistakes grew more glaring, her lies more easily exposed. In Anya's office, Ethan laid the facts bare. "His name is Marco Diaz," he said, placing a file on her desk. "No fixed address, a violent history, unemployed." Anya read through the file, letting out a low whistle. "A bit of a contrast to you, huh?" "That's the point," Ethan answered, his voice flat. "She wanted danger. She wanted excitement." "You're sure about this affair?" Anya asked, pushing a tablet across the desk towards him. Ethan's response was immediate, his tone unwavering. "Hotel footage, restaurant receipts, Text messages from her cloud backup, the one she thought was secure, 57 encounters in 3 months. Same hotel each time, charged to our joint account. Bold, Anya said, her lips curling into a smirk. Or reckless, Ethan replied, his words terse. She thought I wouldn't notice, that I wouldn't check. She was too preoccupied with her own life. She assumed I was emotionally blind. Anya's voice held a challenge. She thinks you're cold, detached. Ethan rose and walked towards the window, his back to her. She confuses control with coldness, precision with detachment. And she's wrong. No, she's right, Ethan said, turning back, his eyes as cold as ice. But not in the way she thinks. Anya nodded slowly, her pen hovering over her notepad. So what's next? Ethan's answer was concise, calculated. Everything we've discussed. The accounts, the properties, her reputation. His tone became even more surgical. I want it complete. No mistakes, no escape. Anya hesitated, her gaze assessing. It's going to get ugly. It already is, Ethan replied, sitting back down, his focus unwavering. Now it's just a matter of execution, precision. For the next hour, the two worked in silence, crafting a strategy with careful consideration. Anya's handwriting was swift, sharp. When they finished, she looked up at Ethan, her expression grave. Are you absolutely sure about this? He rose, his resolve evident in his eyes. Once we start, there's no turning back. I've never been more certain. He stared at Anya, his cold gaze unrelenting. She thinks I'm cold? Fine. Let's show her what real coldness looks like. 3 days before Isabella made her move, Ethan noticed the signs in the data. A large cash withdrawal, a flurry of urgent calls to her personal shopper, hours spent on the phone with numbers he traced to moving companies. Isabella thought she was covering her tracks. To Ethan, it was a trail of breadcrumbs leading straight to her departure. During those 3 days, Ethan prepared the penthouse with the utmost precision. Every detail accounted for. Every camera positioned. Every microphone on standby. When the moment arrived, there would be no uncertainty. Every word, every movement, every decision recorded. When the confrontation finally happened, it lacked the drama Ethan might have expected. He stood in the penthouse, watching Isabella pack, his face a mask of unflinching control. I love him, she said, her voice shaking with a mixture of defiance and fear. I'm never coming back. Ethan studied her, noticing the tremor in her hands, the way she refused to meet his gaze. Every subtle sign, every imperfection was added to his mental record. How long? Ethan asked, his voice as calm as a still lake. Does it matter? Isabella lifted her chin, her voice defiant. Would it change anything? Everything matters, Ethan answered, his tone sharp like the edge of a scalpel. Every detail, every choice. That's the problem. Problem? Isabella's composure started to crack. To you, everything is just data, numbers, facts. Where's the passion? Where's the life? Marco gives me that. Ethan's smile was thin and sharp. The excitement you crave. At least he feels something. Isabella spat, her face flushed with emotion. At least he's real. Ethan moved toward his desk and pressed a button on his laptop. The screen flickered, showing a security feed from the Grand Astor Hotel. Is this real? His voice was cold, methodical. Is this the kind of real you want? Isabella's face paled, her breath catching in her throat. You've been spying on me, she whispered, her voice cracking. Gathering data. That's what I do, Ethan replied, his tone flat and emotionless. Remember Marco Diaz? 44 years old, a man with a history marked by criminal actions, 3 arrests for assault, 2 restraining orders, and no stable employment. Currently he's staying in a motel, living off credit cards he could never hope to pay off. Isabella's hands trembled as she held her phone, her voice sharp with disbelief. You don't know him. I know everything. Ethan's voice was steady, fingers moving quickly across the keyboard. Every hotel stay, every meal, every gift you bought him with our money. Our money? Isabella's laugh was bitter, almost mocking. You mean your money, she spat. That's all you care about. No, Ethan replied, his tone calm. What matters to me is clarity, truth, precision. He turned toward the window, gazing at the rain that had begun to fall. And the truth is, you're not leaving me for love. You're leaving me for a fantasy. Isabella's voice wavered, her defiance beginning to crack. That's not true. Ethan's eyes returned to her, his gaze unwavering. Then why did you transfer $5,000 into your personal account yesterday? Isabella's face paled. How did you know? Ethan's smile was cold, almost predatory. I know everything, Isabella. Everything. Those accounts are mine. Check the paperwork. His voice softened, too calm. Check every single document. Fear began to cloud Isabella's face as the realization settled in. Her voice barely a whisper, she asked, What did you do? Nothing, Ethan said, sitting down at his desk. His preparation for this moment had been meticulous. He hadn't chosen the usual security team. He knew their reluctance, their potential empathy. Instead, he had selected former military personnel, cold, precise, efficient men who viewed their task as a mission. The moment had arrived, just as he had predicted. Ethan kept his eyes on Isabella's reflection in the screen before him. 8 years of marriage, now reduced to a few suitcases of luxury clothing and high-priced jewelry. He thought back to their wedding day, the way her eyes had lit up when he handed her the keys to her first luxury car. Even then, he had known her affection was conditional, a transaction dressed as love. He had simply miscalculated the terms of their agreement. The security team arrived silently, responding to his discreet signal with surgical precision. Isabella's eyes shifted between Ethan and the guards, her mind racing as the weight of the situation took full effect. You can't do this, she whispered. I'm not erasing you, Ethan said, his eyes still fixed on the screen. I'm just restoring you to your natural state. The person you were before my money turned you into someone else. Before the cars, before the clothes, before the social status. Isabella's panic grew louder. I'll fight you. I'll hire lawyers. Anya, she added, clinging to the name like a lifeline. The best lawyer in Manhattan. Ethan's smile was sharp, the edge of it cutting through the room. The same one who drafted our prenup. Isabella's frustration flickered. Ethan, please, we can still talk about this. Now you want to talk? Ethan finally looked up. After 57 hotel meetings, after thousands spent on gifts, after lying to my face for months, the time for talking is over. With a final decisive keystroke, he spoke again. Your credit cards are canceled. All your accounts are frozen. The properties are being listed. You'll leave with exactly what you came into this marriage with. Nothing, Isabella whispered it under her breath, the word cutting deep. Nothing? Ethan corrected her, his voice low and controlled. You had nothing. Then, nothing is all you'll leave with. He nodded to the guards. Please escort Mrs. Sterling out. She's no longer authorized to be in this building. Panic seeped into Isabella's voice. You can't do this. I need... What you need is no longer my concern, Ethan interrupted, his tone impassive. You chose excitement over stability, passion over precision. Now you can live with that choice. Marco will... Isabella tried to argue. Ethan's voice froze her. Marco will what? Support you? Protect you? With what? His minimum wage job? His criminal record? His violent tendencies? Isabella flinched as the truth hit. Fear crept through her facade of defiance. "Goodbye, Isabella." Ethan didn't look up. "The guards will see you out." Isabella's protests died down as she was led down the hallway. Ethan sat there alone, the dim light around him as still and quiet as the rain. He felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Then his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You think you can just throw her away? We'll see about that. Marco." Ethan smiled faintly, saving the number. Another piece of the puzzle had clicked into place. Another step closer to his goal. He dialed Anya's number. The call picked up immediately. "It's done," he said without wasting a second. "Start everything." He added the words crisp and final. "Full protocol." He stared out at the rain-soaked skyline. Anya's calm voice came through the line. "It's aggressive," she cautioned. "Nuclear." Ethan nodded. "Let it happen." "No." Ethan's response was curt and cold, slicing through the tension that hung thick in the room. His voice was even, calculated, devoid of any warmth or empathy. The city around him seemed to blur as his driver maneuvered the car through the rain-soaked streets. Neon lights smeared like smudges on a canvas. He had been moving constantly the night before, not due to restlessness or inner turmoil, but because precision and efficiency required it. The first 24 hours after a separation had to be executed without flaw. Accounts had to be locked, assets frozen, access revoked. Everything had to unfold at the perfect moment, generating maximum impact while mitigating legal risks. Ethan's phone buzzed incessantly. 67 missed calls, 38 from Isabella, 15 from Marco, the rest from friends and family who were starting to sense something was wrong. Without hesitation, Ethan categorized the calls, labeling them for later reference. He didn't view them as cries for help. They were simply data. Emotions were numbers. Reactions were metrics. Every detail could be broken down, analyzed, and used. By morning, Ethan sat in his office at Sterling Tower, watching his meticulously crafted plan unfold across multiple monitors. A credit card declined at the Grand Astor Hotel. Denied access at the country club. Membership cancelled at the spa. Each rejection felt like a surgical cut, slowly dismantling the illusion of Isabella's privileged life. Just then, Sophia barged in, distress etched on her face, holding her phone up as though accusing him. "What did you do?" she demanded. "Be specific." Without lifting his eyes from the screens, Ethan answered calmly. "Isabella called me crying," Sophia continued, her voice thick with frustration. "She said you've frozen everything, left her with nothing." "Not nothing." Ethan's tone remained composed, unshaken. "She has Marco." "This isn't you, Ethan," Sophia protested, her voice wavering. "This cold, methodical destruction." Ethan's gaze finally met hers, his eyes steady. "This is exactly who I am." Sophia sank into the chair across from him, her face a mixture of disbelief and sorrow. "But you've never done this to someone before." Ethan's voice was crisp, unwavering. "She made a choice. No, 57 choices to be exact." Sophia's voice softened, almost pleading. "What happened to you?" "Nothing happened to me," Ethan replied, turning back to his monitors. "I'm just showing Isabella who I've always been. The man she thought was too distant to feel, too precise to ever strike back. And this revenge," Sophia trailed off, her words heavy. "Does it make you feel better?" Ethan's smile was thin and empty, void of any satisfaction. "I don't do this to feel. I do it to make sure the data aligns, to balance the equation, the ledger squared," he added, almost in passing. Sophia stood, tears welling in her eyes. "I don't recognize you anymore." Ethan's voice softened, but only slightly. "Then you never really knew me. Go home, Sophia," he said firmly. "This isn't your fight." Once Sophia was gone, Ethan accessed the latest surveillance footage. Isabella and Marco were standing outside a run-down motel, their argument escalating. Isabella's designer clothes clashed starkly with the grime surroundings. Marco's face twisted in anger, his features starting to show the first hints of the violence Ethan knew was coming. Ethan watched the scene unfold with the precision of someone reviewing raw data. He had expected this. It was all part of the plan. The first phase was over. Now, all that was left was to observe. Because sometimes the most effective form of revenge wasn't in the actions you took. It was in letting someone face the inevitable consequences of their own choices. A week after Isabella's departure, the veneer of her glamorous whirlwind romance with Marco began to crack. Ethan's surveillance team caught a heated argument outside an upscale restaurant where Marco made his first public show of aggression. "Where were you?" Marco's voice seethed through the feed, thick with accusation. "I called 3 times. "I was shopping." Isabella's voice trembled, barely audible. Marco's fury was unmistakable, his voice low and violent. The sound of her purse smashing against the wall silenced her reply. His face contorted with the same rage Ethan had seen in his police records. "You answer when I call," Marco hissed, gripping her arm roughly. "Every time. Got it?" Isabella nodded. Her dress crumpled beneath his hold, mascara streaking down her tear-streaked face. The nearby diners averted their eyes, pretending not to see, just like they had when Marco shoved her in the elevator at the Grand Astor Hotel, passing it off as passion. They would continue to ignore the growing violence. Ethan watched the entire exchange, his team meticulously documenting every detail. He had seen it before, the predictable cycle of Marco's relationships. First came isolation, then control, and within days, violence. The team also reported that Isabella had tried to access her old accounts multiple times, each attempt blocked, each card denied. One surveillance feed captured Isabella standing outside a luxury boutique in the rain, mascara dripping down her face, as Marco loomed behind her like a predator. "What do you mean you can't pay?" His voice was cutting, cruel. "You said you had money." I do," Isabella's voice broke. "Ethan must have frozen everything." And just like that, it was done. The world of the wealthy woman was unraveling piece by piece. Marco's laugh was sharp and biting, tinged with cruelty. "Looks like you're on your own now," he sneered. "I'm not carrying dead weight." Ethan had already secured the footage, just like he did with all the others, evidence always gathering. His phone vibrated with a message from an unknown number. "Your cameras can't watch her forever. Soon she'll experience what real passion is like." Marco stood in Ethan's office as Anya sifted through the most recent reports. It was confirmed. Complete isolation. No money, no access to properties, no connections. Marco's plans were unfolding precisely as anticipated. Ethan finished his task and leaned back, wondering how long it would take before Marco started asking for money. The answer was already clear. Isabella had tried to pawn some jewelry the day before. Ethan's lips curled into a grim, satisfied smile. Anya's voice broke through his thoughts, laced with concern. "And when that runs out, you know what he'll do next." Ethan's reply was unemotional. "His history with women like her is why I'm letting this play out." "She wanted danger, excitement," Anya corrected, her voice low. "Now she'll get it in full," Ethan said, eyes drifting toward the rain-soaked windows below them. In the city, Isabella was beginning to understand that passion without limits only led to destruction. That reckless excitement, wild and unrestrained, was chaos in a seductive form. Every choice had its price, each one calculated to the smallest detail. Ethan's role was simple: observe, document, and wait. Because like success, revenge wasn't driven by emotions. It was about flawless execution. The dingy motel room reeked of stale cigarettes and shattered aspirations. Through his surveillance feed, Ethan watched as Marco paced the cramped space, clearly agitated, while Isabella sat on the bed, trembling fingers clutching her phone. "Try again," Marco snarled, yanking a hand through his disheveled hair. Isabella's hand shook as she dialed again. "Please, just pick up." "Your rich friend blocking your calls now?" Marco mocked. He kicked the flimsy table, sending it crashing into the wall. "Not so popular without Daddy's credit cards, huh?" "They're just busy," Isabella whispered, eyes pleading. "They'll call back." Marco snatched the phone from her hand, hurling it against the wall. "Busy? No, they're avoiding you, just like your precious husband planned," he spat. "Don't break my phone!" Isabella cried, reaching for it. The slap echoed in Ethan's headset. He adjusted the volume, meticulously cataloging each moment: Isabella's dazed expression, the blossoming bruise on her cheek. "You don't get a thing unless I give it to you," Marco growled, looming over her. "Got it?" "Yes," Isabella whispered, her voice shaking. "Got it." Ethan's phone buzzed again, Anya's name flashing on the screen. "Are you seeing this?" Ethan's voice was flat, devoid of emotion, always. Anya replied. "Every second. He's moving faster than we thought. Isolation, control, right on schedule." "Good," Ethan replied, voice colder than ice. "How's the campaign going? The photos you leaked, they're everywhere." "Every event she tries to attend, every person she tries to reach, everyone knows about her affair now. She's toxic." "Perfect," Ethan murmured, shifting to another feed. He watched as Marco grabbed Isabella's arm, preventing her from leaving. "Any success with her accounts?" he asked. 17 attempts in the last week, Anya reported. All blocked. There was a long silence before Anya spoke again, her voice quieter, almost hesitant. "Ethan, no one's hurt her badly yet. Not really." Ethan's voice was cold, flat. "He already is." He paused, then added, "That's the plan." Through the feed, Marco's voice grew louder. "Where do you think you're going?" he barked. "I just need some air," Isabella stammered. "Air?" Marco laughed, the sound low and venomous. "You mean call one of your rich friends? Beg them for money?" "No," Isabella began, but the sound of glass shattering cut her off. On screen, Marco gripped a broken bottle, his face twisted in fury. "You don't leave unless I say you leave," he hissed. "Marco, please," Isabella begged, backing away. "You're scaring me." "Good," he sneered, stepping closer. "Maybe fear will teach you loyalty, unlike what you showed your husband." Ethan muted the audio, but kept the video feed running. Every moment was being recorded, every escalation carefully logged. The pattern of revenge unfolding exactly as he'd planned. His phone buzzed again, a message from Sophia. "She called me crying, said he's hurting her. We need to do something." Ethan's response was swift and to the point. "She made her choice. Now she lives with it." Sophia's voice trembled as she confronted her brother, the disbelief clear in her words. "This isn't who you are. The brother I knew would never just watch someone suffer like this." Ethan didn't flinch, his gaze fixed on the glowing screens in front of him. "The brother you knew doesn't exist anymore," he replied flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. "He died the day she chose violence over loyalty." In the dim, suffocating motel room, Marco had Isabella cornered. His hands gripped her shoulders tightly, forcing her to meet his furious glare as she sobbed uncontrollably. The expensive makeup she once wore now streaked down her face, a stark reminder of her fading beauty. The intercom crackled to life, and Ethan's assistant's voice came through. "Your sister's here. Let her in." Ethan responded coldly, silencing the device without a second glance. As Sophia stormed into the room, her face flushed with anger, her body radiating an intense, barely contained fury. "Enough, Ethan!" Sophia spat, her voice sharp and full of frustration. "This has to end." Ethan didn't lift his eyes from the monitors. "And what?" he asked, his voice flat. "I'm not doing anything." Sophia's fist slammed down onto the desk with a sharp crack, her frustration boiling over. "You're watching her get hurt and doing nothing." "She made her choice," Ethan said, his voice unnervingly calm. "She chose him. The excitement, the passion, the violence." "She didn't know what she was getting into," Sophia shot back, her voice cracking as she locked eyes with him. Ethan stared at her unflinchingly. "The police reports, the restraining orders, the hospital visits. She knew exactly who he was, and she chose him anyway. She was reckless. She was stupid." Sophia's chest tightened, the weight of his words sinking in. "And this is what she deserves?" she whispered, her voice bitter. Ethan turned his attention back to the monitors. "The cost of betrayal is more than losing what you had. It's fully understanding the hell you've chosen in its place." Sophia's throat tightened, a pained look crossing her face. "You've changed," she murmured, disbelief thick in her voice. "No," Ethan answered, a sharp smile twisting his lips. "I've always been like this. I'm precise." Sophia shook her head slowly, her gaze steady. "You're cold, cold," Ethan chuckled, but there was no warmth in it. "No, you're just seeing my precision aimed at a target for the first time." On the screen, Isabella shrank back as Marco, consumed by rage, hurled her phone against the wall. It shattered, a useless piece of broken glass. Now, no way to reach out for help. No way out from the life she had chosen. Exactly as Ethan had planned, Olivia had once relished attending the BWV Arts Gala, dazzling, surrounded by the city's elite, cloaked in designer gowns. But now she stood alone in the pouring rain, watching as luxury cars pulled up and laughter filled the air. The contrast to her isolation suffocating. "Please," she begged the security guard, her voice breaking with desperation. "I should be on the list. I've always been on the list." His face was impassive, his professional detachment masking the subtle disdain in his eyes. "Not anymore, ma'am. This is a private event. Invitation only." Across the street, Ethan observed, his eyes hidden behind the tinted windows of his car. Olivia, her face cracking under the pressure, stood in the rain. Her gown, once elegant, was now ragged, soaked through, and clinging to her like a second skin. Her jewelry, what little was left, was cheap and obvious, a stark reminder of how far she had fallen. Beside him, Anya spoke quietly, her tone businesslike. "Everything's proceeding as planned." Ethan's smile was ice cold. "Perfect." He motioned toward a group of socialites who were whispering and pointing at Olivia from behind their hands. "Watch this," he said, his eyes gleaming with dark amusement. A voice rang out from the crowd, a woman's high-pitched with faux enthusiasm. "Oh my God, is that you?" A flicker of hope sparked in Olivia's eyes as she turned toward the sound. "Miranda?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please tell them who I am. I'm still someone." Miranda's smile was razor-sharp, her voice laced with cruelty. "Oh, we know exactly who you are," she sneered. "The woman who cheated on Ethan Sterling with some violent thug. How's that working out for you?" "It's not—" Olivia choked out, but Miranda's laughter rang out, cutting her off. "Those photos were pretty clear." Another woman joined in, her voice dripping with malice. You were all over that thug at the Grand Astor Hotel, very passionate, very cheap. Miranda's venomous tone filled the air. You were just a gold digger, using Ethan until you found someone you thought would give you a better deal. And now look at you. She motioned dismissively at Olivia's drenched, ruined gown. Nothing. Olivia wrapped her arms around herself, trembling from the cold and the cruelty. You were supposed to be my friends, she whispered, her voice breaking. Miranda's laugh was bitter and mocking. We never were friends, darling. We tolerated you because of Ethan, because of his money, his influence. Now, she waved her hand toward Olivia's ruined appearance. Now you're nothing. Olivia staggered away from the gala, mascara streaking down her cheeks in dark trails. Ethan's gaze never left her, his expression unreadable as he watched her every move through the window. Just then, Marco emerged from the shadows, his expression twisted in disdain as he approached her. They don't like damaged goods, he muttered, his voice dripping with scorn. Olivia's voice was weak, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Take me home, she begged, her words barely audible. Marco's grip on her arm tightened painfully as he pulled her forward. Home? You mean that run-down motel I can barely afford, the one falling apart, all because you've been useless? I'm sorry, Olivia's voice cracked. I'll figure it out. I'll find a way. You better, Marco sneered, shoving her toward his car. I'm getting real tired of carrying your worthless ass. In the car, Anya glanced at Ethan, her voice low. The social destruction is complete. Every door closed, every friend turned away. What's next? Ethan started the engine, his eyes gleaming with something dark and cold. Now, he said, his voice as frigid as the night air outside. Now we watch as isolation destroys them from the inside out. Them? Anya asked, arching an eyebrow. Him with his frustration, her with her fear, Ethan answered, a predatory smile curling at the corners of his lips. And if he kills her? Anya asked, her voice betraying a moment of unease. Ethan's smile widened, colder than before. Then she'll have experienced the full measure of the excitement she wanted. They drove off into the rain, leaving Olivia to face the dark consequences of the life she had chosen, alone and forsaken. The emergency room was unnervingly quiet at 3 a.m. Ethan stood motionless in the observation room, his eyes fixed on Olivia as the medical team worked to assess her injuries. 3 fractured ribs, a broken wrist, and contusions covering nearly every part of her body. Anya's voice broke the stillness, barely above a whisper. The police want to speak with her. They're considering pressing charges. Ethan's response was firm, his conviction unshaken. She won't. She's too afraid. Anya arched an eyebrow, skeptical. How can you be so certain? Before Ethan could answer, Marco's voice erupted from inside the room, full of anger. Who called the cops? Was it you? Olivia, struggling to sit up despite the excruciating pain, whispered. No, I told them I fell. Marco's sneer was unmistakable. Just like you said. His voice grew more irate. They're asking questions. They're getting suspicious. He began pacing the room, his agitation palpable. I'll make them stop, Olivia promised weakly. I'll say whatever you want. Marco leaned in close, his voice a menacing growl. You better. If I go down, you're going down harder. Remember that. Ethan remained still, his face a mask of indifference. Through the glass, he recalled the moments that had led them to this point. Marco's violent outburst when he found a phone number in Olivia's purse, an old friend's number, someone she had reached out to for help. A nurse approached Ethan. Are you family? She asked, her tone polite. Ex-husband, Ethan replied without emotion. She's asking for you? The nurse informed him. Ethan offered a cold, humorless smile. Is she inside? In the room, Olivia looked like a broken shell, her face a patchwork of bruises and fear. Marco had stepped out for a cigarette, leaving her alone for the first time in days. Ethan entered quietly. Olivia's whisper barely rose above the sound of her shallow breaths. "Please, help me." "Help you?" Ethan stood rigidly at the foot of the bed, his posture unyielding. He didn't see the woman he once loved. He saw the consequences of her decisions. "You're asking for help now? After everything?" Tears blurred Olivia's vision. "He's going to kill me. Please, please, I didn't want this. Not this." Ethan's voice was as cold as ice. "Wasn't he exciting enough? Dangerous enough? Isn't this what you wanted all along? The thrill? The passion?" Olivia gasped for air, her pain evident as she reached out, wincing. "I was wrong. I'm sorry. So sorry." Ethan took a slow step closer, his gaze unfeeling. "Sorry for what? For choosing him over me? For betraying me? My trust, my money, my life? For 57 nights at the Grand Astor Hotel picking excitement over loyalty? Now you get to live with that thrill fully." Olivia's voice cracked with desperation. "Please don't leave me here. He'll kill me." Ethan straightened, his expression unchanged. "Maybe, but that's not my problem anymore." He turned on his heel and left the room, just as Marco stormed back in, his voice growing louder, more enraged. Olivia's sobs filled the air, mingling with Marco's tirades. In the hallway, Anya was waiting for him. "That was cruel," she said softly. Ethan didn't flinch. "It was justice." He checked his watch. "Make sure the police reports are ready. When she refuses to press charges, we'll need them for later, when he finally goes too far." A sharp, cold smile tugged at his lips. Evidence carries more weight than emotions. Nearby, the surveillance footage from outside the motel played on a screen. Marco dragging Olivia by her hair, slamming her against the side of his car. Her attempts to flee, his fist striking her face, blood pooling on the pavement. "Play it again," Ethan instructed his team. One of the men hesitated. "Sir, shouldn't we call the police?" "Not yet," Ethan replied, his voice deliberate. "Timing is everything." His phone rang, cutting through the tension. It was Sophia, his sister, her voice frantic. "You have to stop this. He's completely lost it. She just called me. She did?" Ethan glanced at his watch, unfazed. "Right on schedule." "What do you mean by that?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. "The progression," Ethan replied as he pulled up data on his tablet. "Every one of Marco's relationships follows the same pattern. Week 12. That's when the violence peaks. That's when he usually sends them to the hospital." "You've been tracking this?" Sophia asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Of course," Ethan answered flatly. "Revenge requires precision." The surveillance feed resumed, and Marco's angry voice filled the room. "You think you can run from me? Nobody wants you. Nobody helps trash like you." Olivia's voice was faint, trembling with fear as she begged, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Marco's foot crashed into her already battered ribs. "Sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't make you worth anything." Ethan stood motionless, his eyes glued to the screen. Each punch, each scream, each attempt to escape. Every moment was documented, categorized, and stored away. Evidence building until it was time to use it. Sophia's voice trembled, panic edging her words. "Ethan, she's going to die." "No." Ethan quickly scanned another monitor. The police were just 3 minutes away. An anonymous call had reported a domestic violence incident. They'd be there in time to prevent a murder, but too late to stop the damage already inflicted. A twisted grin spread across his face. Karma. In the background, the faint sound of sirens cut through the silence. Marco stood frozen, his fist still raised, ready to strike again. Olivia lay on the floor, her once beautiful face now a swollen, bloody mess. You called them? Marco snarled, spinning to face her. You idiot! His words were interrupted as the door burst open and the police charged in, weapons drawn. Hands where we can see them! A commanding voice rang out. Ethan observed the scene with clinical detachment, tracking Marco's every movement through multiple surveillance feeds, capturing every second of the confrontation. The arrest was swift. Rights were read, drugs found in his car, and outstanding warrants pulled up on the system. It's over. Anya's voice was flat, but there was a note of satisfaction in it. He's going down. Multiple charges, assault, drug possession, and those old warrants. He won't be out for years. And Olivia? Ethan asked, his voice steady. She refuses treatment, refuses to press charges, Anya replied. After a pause, she's got nowhere to go. Ethan powered down his laptops, already moving, his thoughts toward the next step. Now she knows what it feels like to have nothing. The shelter was a far cry from the luxury penthouse Olivia once called home. Ethan watched through the cameras as she was processed at intake, clutching a plastic bag containing the remnants of her life. We can offer you a bed for 30 days, the intake worker said, her voice impersonal. After that, Olivia's voice was hollow, a mere echo. After that what? We offer programs, job training, counseling. The worker's tone was measured, trying to sound reassuring. Job placement services, too. Olivia's laugh was bitter, devoid of humor. I've never worked a day in my life, never had to. The worker's voice didn't falter. Well, now you do. Back in his office, Ethan meticulously reviewed the final numbers. Every account emptied, every property liquidated, every connection severed. The woman who had once reveled in luxury now had to learn how to scrape by with nothing. His phone buzzed. Olivia's new shelter-issued number had messaged. You won. I have nothing left. Are you happy now? Ethan took a moment before replying. Happiness wasn't the goal. Justice was. Her response came quickly. I'm sleeping on a cot in a room with 5 strangers. Is that justice? No. He typed back coldly. That's consequences. Justice is knowing you'll never hurt anyone again. The way you hurt me. The phone went silent after that. Ethan's eyes shifted back to the security cameras, where Olivia now lay curled up on the narrow shelter bed. Her designer clothes had been replaced by ill-fitting donated sweats. Her once perfect nails were chipped and broken. Far from the pristine image she had once so carefully curated, Anya entered the room, holding new reports. Marco's trial date is set, multiple charges, and the other victims are coming forward just like we expected. 7 women, all with eerily similar stories, Anya said, sitting down. The DA thinks he's looking at a minimum of 15 years. Good, Ethan replied, his voice cold. He pulled up another screen. Just got out of the country club board meeting. They've officially revoked her membership, and she's banned from all affiliated clubs nationwide, by unanimous vote. A small smile tugged at his lips. In her desperation to reconnect with her old circle, those photos we leaked did their job. No one wants to touch her now. She's toxic. Anya gave a tight smile. The shelter says she called 20 different people today. Not a single one answered. Perfect, Ethan said, his tone flat. His eyes shifted to another monitor. And the job applications? Rejected. It's amazing how many hiring managers in Manhattan recognize her name. They all know what she did. Anya said, her smile sharp. No one's going to take a chance on the woman who betrayed Ethan Sterling. Ethan glanced back at Olivia through the shelter's cameras. She was struggling to apply makeup with shaky, unsteady hands, far from the luxury cosmetics and professional stylists she used to rely on. At that moment, his assistant's voice came through the intercom. Sir, your sister's here again. Send her in, Ethan instructed. Sophia stormed into the office, phone in hand, waving it at him. She's living in a homeless shelter, Ethan. A shelter! Ethan's voice was as cold as ice. She's living with the consequences of her choices. She's learned her lesson. Sophia slammed her hands down on his desk. Look at her, Ethan. She's a wreck. Not quite, Ethan said, his tone indifferent as he turned the screen to show her Olivia curled up on the cot. Destruction implies there's nothing left to lose. She still has her pride, her hope that someone will come to her rescue. And that's what you want? Sophia asked, her voice incredulous. You want to break her entirely? Ethan's smile was empty, like a shell. This isn't about what I want. This is a matter of cause and effect. Every betrayal has its price. She's simply paying hers. The man I once knew as a brother would never have come to this. The person you see now, though. He was born the moment she chose violence over loyalty. Ethan returned his focus to the monitors before him. This is who I am. This is who I've always been. You're just seeing it for the first time. Sophia took a step back, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. You're taking pleasure in this, she murmured. Ethan's reply was steady, unwavering. No, I'm ending it. There's a distinction. After Sophia left, Ethan stood at the window, gazing out at the relentless Manhattan rain. Somewhere beyond the storm, Olivia was beginning to understand the cost of her choices. The way opulence could crumble into poverty, and how pride could erode until only regret remained. His phone vibrated, a new message from Olivia. I'm sorry for everything. Please help me. Ethan's fingers moved over the screen, typing 3 words, each one measured and final. No way back. He powered down his phone and turned back to his work. Somewhere in the midst of a crowded shelter, the woman who once had everything was now learning the hard lesson of having nothing. Ethan's hands flew over the keyboard, pulling up surveillance footage. Images of Marco's brutal past flashing across the screens. One showed a Kansas City bar where Marco had slammed a woman violently into the wall. Another displayed hospital records, broken bones, bruises, all written off as accidents. Anya's voice broke the silence, sharp and to the point. The pieces are in place. She spread a series of files across Ethan's desk. 7 victims ready to testify, 3 more coming forward. Ethan studied the photos of battered women, each one a powerful piece in his growing arsenal. Show me the pattern, he ordered. Anya clicked through the files, and a map appeared on the screen, red dots marking the locations. 3 years in Chicago, 2 in Denver, 4 in Portland, and now Manhattan, Ethan commented, a cold smile pulling at his lips. His last stop. His phone rang, the DA's voice cutting through. We found the missing evidence. Go ahead, Ethan said, leaning forward. DNA samples that were once lost in 3 assault cases, all pointing to Diaz. Ethan allowed a smirk to tug at the corner of his mouth. Funny what proper data storage can keep intact. He glanced at another monitor, showing Marco pacing in his prison cell. The judge is reviewing the files now. With this, he'll never see daylight again. I'm scheduling the hearing, the DA continued. I want to be there when he realizes what's coming for him. Ethan's satisfaction was evident. Good. I want to watch him squirm. The phone clicked off, and Ethan returned to his work, his fingers gliding over the keys, tracking every movement of Marco's crumbling confidence. With each step closer to justice, the man was edging toward his inevitable downfall. Sir? An assistant's voice interrupted. Detective Carlson's here. He's got something on the anonymous tips. The detective entered, a thick file in hand. Mr. Sterling, I've got some interesting intel. Multiple reports on Marco Diaz, drug deals, assault charges, restraining orders. How unfortunate for him. Ethan remained expressionless. I assume you're investigating already? Did, Carlson replied, spreading crime scene photos across the desk. "I've traced a pattern stretching over 15 years. Women hurt, lives destroyed, all tied to Diaz. And now we have enough to bury him." Carlson's smile mirrored Ethan's, a shared frigid understanding of what was to come. Someone did their homework, collected every shred of evidence, made it impossible to ignore. "Justice requires precision," Ethan said flatly, his voice an unwavering finality. "Anything else?" Carlson asked. "Just one thing," Ethan replied, his gaze fixed on the screens. "The anonymous tips. They were thorough, almost as if someone had been planning this for months." Carlson hesitated, regarding Ethan with a mix of suspicion and respect. "Justice," Ethan said coolly, "often requires patience and meticulous planning." Once Carlson had gone, Anya returned with fresh information. "Marco's lawyer is pushing for a plea deal." "Denial," Ethan replied sharply. "I want this out in the open. Every victim testifying, every crime exposed. It'll shatter him completely." Ethan's eyes never left the monitor, watching Marco's movements grow increasingly erratic. Some men had to be broken. The public eye made a cautionary tale. A security camera in a motel parking lot captured Olivia's desperate flight, her heels stumbling over cracked pavement, her once valuable clothes long gone, pawned for survival. Marco was close behind, his face contorted with rage. "Get back here!" His voice blasted through the speakers, raw and furious. "You think you can leave me after everything? Please!" Olivia, desperate, fought for her car, her escape slipping through her fingers. "I can't!" she cried, her voice breaking. "I can't do this anymore." Marco grabbed her arm, yanking her around. "Can't handle it now that your rich husband cut you off? Now you have to live like everyone else?" From multiple angles, Ethan watched Olivia's hopeless struggle, each camera showing another piece of the painful puzzle. "Should we intervene?" the security team leader asked, a hint of concern creeping into his voice. "No," Ethan answered coldly, his voice as sharp as ice. "Let it play out." On screen, Marco shoved Olivia against the car. "You're nothing without me. No money, no friends, no one." Ethan didn't respond. His eyes remained fixed on the screen, the weight of consequence gathering like an impending storm. Olivia was in a nightmare, trapped in a prison of her own making, or at least that's what it felt like. Her body strained against the bonds holding her in place, every muscle in revolt as she searched for any chance to escape. "There has to be a way out," she told herself quietly. "I can't just let him win." But then the harsh sound of Marco's cruel laughter cut through her thoughts. "What now?" he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're going to crawl back to Ethan, huh? Beg him for mercy? You really think he'll take you back? Not now. Not after you're broken. You're worthless. Just a shattered mess." Ethan's phone buzzed urgently, a message flashing across the screen. Sophia's frantic voice crackled through the text. "She's trying to leave him, Ethan. He's going to kill her. Please, he's going to kill her." The message sent a shiver down Ethan's spine. His gaze flicked to another live feed where he could see the quiet, coordinated movement of police units converging on the motel. His blood ran cold. Marco wasn't going to stop until it was too late. On the screen, Olivia made another desperate attempt to flee. But Marco was right there, grabbing her by the hair and yanking her back. The sickening sound of her head slamming into the pavement was sharp, echoing even through the monitor, making the security team wince. "You don't leave unless I say you do," Marco growled, kicking Olivia in her already battered side. "You think you're above me? That you can just walk away? You're nothing, just a broken doll." Olivia's voice, faint and trembling, barely made it past her lips. "Someone, please, help me." "No one's coming." Marco spat, his face twisted with rage. He raised his fist high, his fury palpable. "No one wants you." Suddenly, the screech of police sirens split the air, slicing through the night. Marco froze, his fist still suspended in the air as officers poured into the parking lot, weapons drawn. "Marco Diaz, put your hands where we can see them," a commanding voice rang out. Marco sneered, his posture stiff with defiance. "This is a private matter, officers," he snarled. "Just me and my—" "What exactly?" The officer advanced, unfazed. "Your victim." Detective Carlson's voice was sharp, dripping with certainty. "Just like the others, Marco." He named them. "Karen Mitchell, Jennifer Torres." And in that instant, Marco's face drained of color. He'd been caught. "How did you—" Marco began, but his protest was cut short as the officers were already on him, the sharp sound of handcuffs snapping shut. Ethan watched the entire scene unfold on his monitors, a grim satisfaction flooding through him. Marco's fall from grace was happening right before his eyes, every second captured from multiple angles. From the flash of blue and red lights to the moment Marco was finally subdued, it was all recorded in painstaking detail. Detective Carlson's voice boomed loud enough for the gathered crowd to hear. "Multiple charges of assault, drug possession, outstanding warrants in 3 states. Marco struggled against the cuffs, his voice a growl. "You can't prove a thing." Carlson's smirk was slow and knowing. "Oh, we can. DNA evidence, hospital records, witnesses who came forward once they understood the truth." He leaned in, voice lowering. "Funny what comes to light when people start paying attention." As they led Marco away, Ethan saw him catch sight of one of his surveillance cameras. For a split second, Marco's eyes widened in realization, then his face twisted with fury and he screamed, You set me up!" Unperturbed, Ethan leaned back in his chair, watching as Marco was shoved into the back of a police car. A cold satisfaction settled deep within him, but it was a satisfaction tinged with the knowledge that there was still much more to come. Meanwhile, paramedics worked over Olivia, documenting every bruise, every injury with careful precision. More evidence in the growing case against Marco. Ethan's phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with Anya's message. "It's done," she wrote. "Marco is being processed, facing multiple felony charges. Olivia's refusing treatment, though she won't press charges, and she has nowhere to go." Anya paused before sending a final note. "She's completely alone." Ethan's grin was sharp, cutting. "Perfect. Now she knows what it feels like to be truly abandoned." In the courtroom, Karen Mitchell took the stand, her voice calm, though there was a tremor of emotion beneath the surface. Ethan sat in the back, watching intently as Marco's confident demeanor shriveled with each new testimony. At first, he had charmed Karen, made her feel safe, even loved, but the mask had long since fallen away. Karen's voice grew steadier as she continued. "He threw me down a flight of stairs when I threatened to leave. She touched the scar on her cheek. "He showed me exactly how much control he had over me." The prosecutor's question cut through the silence. "Why speak out now?" "Because someone made it possible," Karen replied, her gaze meeting Ethan's in the crowd. "Someone gathered the evidence, made it impossible to ignore any longer." One by one, the other victims took the stand. Jennifer Torres spoke of shattered bones. Michelle Adams shared the months of terror she had endured. Each woman's testimony added weight to the case, forming a damning portrait of a man who preyed on the vulnerable. Ethan's eyes never left Marco's face as he observed the subtle twitches, the cracks appearing in his once unshakable mask. With each new revelation, the facade was crumbling. The prosecutor didn't hold back. The defendant has a history of targeting affluent, ambitious women. He isolates them, strips them of their independence, and destroys their self-worth. And once they're broken, he discards them. Pictures flashed on the courtroom screens. Women lying in hospital beds, police reports detailing abuse, restraining orders that had failed to protect. This isn't just one case, the prosecutor continued. This is a decade of calculated, systematic abuse. Without warning, Marco lunged to his feet, the chains around his wrists rattling loudly. His voice was a jagged mix of desperation and rage. "This is all a setup. He's the one behind it." Marco pointed directly at Ethan, fury blazing in his eyes. "Ask him about his ex-wife. Ask him why he's doing this." The judge's gavel slammed down with a sharp crack. "Mr. Diaz, you will remain silent or be removed from the courtroom." Marco's composure shattered completely. "You don't get it. He used my history, my reputation. He's been using it all to destroy her. That's why he's doing this." The prosecutor stood tall, presenting more evidence. "Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence DNA samples from 3 previous assaults." The evidence that had mysteriously disappeared from police custody was inexplicably found in a private lab's database. Marco's defense lawyer shot to his feet, urgently objecting. "Objection!" he cried. "The chain of custody is fully documented." The prosecutor offered a small, knowing smile. "Every step, every handoff, all meticulously logged by Sterling Tech Systems," the prosecutor continued. Marco's eyes widened, a dawning realization washing over him. His body tensed as the truth settled in. With a violent lunge, he tried to reach Ethan, straining against the chains that bound him. "You did this," he spat. "All of it was your doing." Before he could elaborate, guards rushed in, their boots pounding the floor as they closed in on Marco. His frantic protests filled the air, but Ethan remained unmoved. His face was impassive as the pieces of his scheme clicked into place, and he watched with detached satisfaction as Marco was hauled away. The judge's voice shattered the tension. 25 years in prison. No parole for 15. Outside, a crowd of reporters swarmed the courthouse steps. "Mr. Sterling," one reporter called, "were you aware of Marco Diaz's history when your wife left you?" Ethan's response was calm, measured. "I'm just thankful that these courageous women have finally received the justice they deserve," he replied smoothly. After a brief pause, he added, "As for my ex-wife," his words hung in the air, heavy with implication, "I hope she finds the help she so clearly needs." In the back seat of his car, Anya scrolled through the flood of media coverage on her tablet. "It's everywhere," she said. "Every outlet, every social feed." "Good," Ethan muttered, his eyes focused on his phone. Anya lifted her gaze, her tone shifting. "And Olivia, she's living in her car behind that old warehouse. Shelters won't take her anymore. Too much attention from the case." Ethan's eyes flicked to the surveillance footage on his screen, where Olivia was visible in the back of her car, a far cry from the life she had once known. Her face was gaunt, her high-end clothing replaced with worn-out hand-me-downs. "The social destruction is complete," Anya observed, her voice almost satisfied. "She's been shut out from every circle. No one will touch her. The woman who left Ethan Sterling for a criminal," she added, "is now a warning." "Perfect," Ethan said, his tone laced with approval. "Now, the final act." The rain pounded against the windows as Olivia huddled in the back of her car, her once lavish life reduced to nothing. Ethan's cameras captured her at a small diner, nervously preparing for another job interview. "I have experience," she began, only for the manager to cut her off with a sneer. "We've seen the news," he interrupted. "You're the one who left Ethan Sterling for that criminal. We don't need that kind of trouble." Every door slammed shut. Rejection followed rejection, each one more crushing than the last. She could barely remember a time when she had commanded respect and admiration. Now, she couldn't even land a job washing dishes. "Sir," Ethan's assistant buzzed through the speaker, "the country club board has met. Her membership has been revoked, and she's banned from all affiliated clubs nationwide by unanimous vote." Ethan didn't flinch, his attention still focused on his phone. The screen displayed footage of Olivia attempting to pawn the diamond tennis bracelet he had given her on their 5th anniversary. "It's fake," the pawnbroker declared without a hint of hesitation. Olivia's voice wavered with disbelief. "It's worth thousands," she insisted. The pawnbroker shook his head. "Doesn't matter. Someone swapped the stones recently." Ethan smiled grimly, his earlier suspicions about Marco's need for quick cash now confirmed. His phone buzzed again, this time with another update. "Sophia tried to check into another shelter. They turned her away, saying they don't take celebrities." Ethan scoffed at the word celebrity. He muttered, a bitter laugh escaping. "No, she's just a cautionary tale now. A lesson to anyone who thinks they can betray me and get away with it." Through the surveillance feed, Ethan watched as Olivia walked alone in the rain, her designer clothes now replaced with tattered, donated items. The vibrant woman she once was had faded into a shadow of herself. Her hands, once delicate and manicured, were now rough, the result of endless, fruitless attempts at manual labor. "The psychological toll is complete," Anya reported, reviewing the latest footage. She tried to reach out to 37 people today. Friends, acquaintances, even distant family. Not one answered, and every attempt to contact emergency services was denied. Ethan leaned back in his chair, a cruel smile playing at the corners of his lips. "Amazing how many social workers in Manhattan know my name," he mused. "No one's willing to risk helping the woman who betrayed Ethan Sterling," Anya confirmed. Ethan's phone buzzed once more, a text from an unknown number. "I know you're behind all of this. Please, I've learned my lesson," he typed a response. "Lessons require understanding." She replied almost instantly. "I'm sleeping in my car, eating at soup kitchens. Isn't that enough?" "No," Ethan typed back coldly. "That's just the beginning. Now you'll learn what it means to truly be nothing." Standing in his office, Ethan gazed out at the city lights of Manhattan, the rain pouring down in sheets. Behind him, the monitors showed the final stages of his revenge. Marco, now sentenced to 25 years in a maximum security prison, his violent past exposed and his future shattered. Olivia, homeless, jobless, and isolated, every social door closed, every opportunity erased. One by one, they all slipped away. "You were the one who dismantled it all." Sophia's voice broke the heavy silence as she spoke from the doorway, her words sharp and unyielding. "Completely. Is this truly what you wanted, Ethan?" Ethan didn't move from his place by the window. His eyes remained fixed, unwavering. It wasn't satisfaction he sought. It was precision. He measured every consequence, each outcome meticulously planned. "She's broken, Ethan. She's living in her car, struggling to make ends meet." Ethan turned gradually to face his sister. "She's finally showing her true worth." Nothing. And Marco, with his violence, his past, they're all part of a pattern. Ethan's smile didn't reach his eyes. Every act of cruelty he had ever committed was now a variable in his formula, each victim a piece of the destruction he had set in motion. Sophia took a step back, her eyes narrowing as she noticed a subtle shift in him, something in his expression that unsettled her. "You've changed." "No." Ethan's gaze didn't leave the screens in front of him. "I've become precise. Every factor accounted for, every detail calculated to perfection, every element in flawless equilibrium." After Sophia's departure, Ethan stood alone, surrounded by the cold expanse of glass and steel that made up his empire. His revenge was complete. Marco would rot away in prison, his brutality finally subdued. Olivia would languish in destitution, the weight of her treachery reducing her to nothingness, and Ethan would continue, his empire growing, calculated and ruthless beyond reach. Because some betrayals could never be undone. Some equations had no solution. Some choices had irreversible consequences, leading to dead ends with no escape. Our story has come to an end. Betrayal isn't just a mistake. It's a choice, and every choice has consequences. Olivia craved passion, adrenaline, and danger, and she got exactly that. But the illusion of freedom quickly turned into a nightmare. In chasing fleeting excitement, she lost everything: trust, status, wealth, and friends. The people you destroy your life for are rarely there when it all falls apart. Ethan wasn't a saint, but he understood the rules of the game. He didn't seek revenge in a blind rage. He executed it with precision and control. Sometimes the harshest punishment isn't a dramatic showdown. It's silence, where the betrayer is left alone with their choices. This story is a lesson. Every action comes with a price, and sometimes that price is far too high. Choose wisely.